Stephen Hawking's story in one flow. The Boy Who Looked at the Stars. Stephen Hawking was born in Oxford, England in 1942, under a winter sky. From the start, his mind seemed to dance with questions no one else could hear. He didn't just look at the world, he peered through it, into the secrets beneath. Even as a child, the stars felt less like distant lights and more like friends. Books became his playground, and numbers his second language. While others played games in the yard, Stephen imagined the birth of galaxies. His curiosity wasn't loud. It was a quiet fire that burned brighter every year. By the time he reached school, he had already begun thinking beyond the horizon. But Stephen wasn't the fastest in class, nor the neatest. His handwriting leaned awkwardly, and his teachers sometimes underestimated him. Yet he carried inside him an invisible telescope, always focused far away. The universe in his mind was alive, breathing, expanding, waiting to be understood. The night sky over Oxford seemed to whisper to him in its own language. Stars shimmered like secrets, daring him to solve their mysteries. Each twinkle was a challenge, each constellation a story waiting to be told. And Stephen, even then, intended to learn them all. The young dreamer at Cambridge. By the time Stephen turned 17, his questions had only grown louder. He earned a place at Oxford, and later at the University of Cambridge. It wasn't the classrooms that shaped him most. It was the debates, the deep talks at night. Ideas became his oxygen, and the future was something he could almost touch. He laughed often, with a mischievous sparkle in his eyes. His friends called him lazy for avoiding written work, but brilliant when he spoke. Stephen preferred to solve problems in his head, like puzzles no one else could see. When an equation clicked for him, it was like music only he could hear. Yet fate had something waiting, a shadow in his bright horizon. He began to stumble, his body betraying him in small, worrying ways. At 21, he received the diagnosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. Doctors told him he had maybe 2 years to live. The news should have crushed him, but it didn't. Instead, Stephen decided that if his time was short, he would spend it expanding the universe. The disease could take his muscles, but it couldn't touch his mind. And so he began the fight, not against death, but for understanding. The universe in his mind. The wheelchair became his new vantage point, not a prison. From it, Stephen roamed through galaxies of thought few could imagine. He could no longer speak with ease, yet his ideas roared louder than ever. Equations flowed from his mind like rivers, unstoppable and precise. Cambridge halls whispered about the young man with the fierce intellect. Professors were stunned, not by his condition, but by his brilliance. He began to explore black holes, those mysterious mouths of space and time. He asked, what if they weren't the silent dead ends we thought? With patient thought, he reshaped the story of the cosmos. He proposed that black holes might leak energy, radiation, before vanishing. This Hawking radiation would change physics forever. The universe, it seemed, had ways of whispering its secrets to him alone. Speech left him slowly, but technology came to his side. A voice synthesizer allowed him to speak once more, in a tone all his own. The voice was mechanical, but the words were poetry. Crowds leaned forward when he spoke, knowing each sentence was a treasure. The voice of the cosmos. Stephen's wheelchair rolled into lecture halls crowded with eager minds. He spoke of time not as a straight road, but a bending river. Past and future, he said, might be more connected than we imagined. Students felt the weight of his words, as if space itself listened. He worked on a book that would bridge the gap between genius and the world. Not a technical manual, but a cosmic invitation. He called it a brief history of time. It would become one of the most important books of the 20th century. The pages carried the mysteries of the universe in simple, elegant language. Readers from all walks of life could finally grasp the vastness above them. In airports, in homes, in classrooms, the book found its way. Millions read it, and millions were changed by it. Fame followed him like a second shadow. Television crews came, journalists lined up for interviews. His mechanical voice became one of the most recognized sounds in the world. Yet, he remained focused, not on celebrity, but on science. The battle without surrender, ALS, continued to tighten its grip. He could no longer move most of his body. Every physical act became a test of patience and willpower. Yet the spark in his eyes never dimmed. Technology became his hands, his voice, his gateway to the world. With a single cheek muscle, he selected letters on a screen. Words formed slowly, but each was chosen with precision. The world waited for his sentences, knowing they mattered. He traveled the globe to lecture, undeterred by his condition. From packed auditoriums to international conferences, he carried the cosmos with him. Even presidents and world leaders leaned in to listen. His message was always larger than himself. Stephen reminded us that curiosity was the engine of progress, that we are, in the end, just advanced monkeys on a small planet. But our minds, he said, are capable of understanding the universe, and in that lies our true greatness. Beyond the stars. In his later years, Stephen's thoughts reached even further. He pondered the fate of humanity in a vast and dangerous universe. He warned of climate change, of reckless technology, of cosmic threats. But he also inspired hope, urging us to look upward, not just inward. He dreamed of humans colonizing other planets, not as an escape, but as a way to survive and thrive. Mars, he said, could be our second home, the stars, our future frontier. His collaborations crossed boundaries, working with scientists, artists, even filmmakers. He appeared on Star Trek, The Simpsons, and other shows, not for vanity, but to bring science into popular culture, to make physics something everyone could laugh with, wonder about, and love. When he passed in 2018, the world stood still. Tributes poured in from every corner of the earth. His ashes were placed in Westminster Abbey, near Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin, a final resting place among the giants he had joined. Part 7. The Man Behind the Mind, Behind the Science. Stephen was a man of wit and warmth. He loved jokes, even ones about himself. When people pitied him, he often found a way to make them laugh. Humor, he believed, was one of humanity's greatest survival tools. He enjoyed music, especially classical, and the sound of operas filled his home. Though his body was still, his imagination could dance. He read not only physics, but history, literature, and philosophy. Knowledge to him was not a path, it was a horizon without end. Family remained his anchor in the storm. He married, had children, and cherished watching them grow. His illness often made fatherhood harder, but never less meaningful. In their laughter, he found another kind of universe. His friends described him as stubborn, fearless, and endlessly curious. If someone told him something couldn't be done, he tried harder. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove that limits could be pushed, that the mind was more powerful than circumstance. Part 8. A Mind for All Humanity. Stephen's influence went far beyond physics. He spoke about global unity, warning against greed and short-sightedness. He urged leaders to think not in election cycles, but in centuries. The survival of our species, he said, depended on wisdom. He believed that science should belong to everyone, that children in poor villages had the same right to understand the stars as those in wealthy nations with telescopes on their roofs. To him, curiosity was a birthright. He challenged us to look at ourselves as part of something vast, not citizens of one nation, but passengers on the same planet. The Earth, he reminded us, is a fragile blue dot, and if we destroy it, there is no second chance, unless we reach the stars. Stephen saw no conflict between science and wonder. For him, the more we learned, the more magical the universe became. Every answer led to deeper questions, and the journey was the point. Part 9. Final Lessons. In his last years, Stephen's health grew fragile, yet his schedule stayed full. He wrote, lectured, advised, and inspired. Students lined up to meet him, sometimes trembling with excitement. He encouraged them with a simple truth: look up at the stars, not down at your feet. He reminded them that obstacles are part of the path, that life is never completely fair, but it is full of possibility, that intelligence is the ability to adapt to change, and that kindness should guide how we use our knowledge. Though his voice was mechanical, the emotion behind it was real. His pauses, his timing carried weight. In silence, he sometimes spoke more than with words. He understood that presence itself can be a form of language. When he appeared on stage, crowds rose in applause, not for pity, but for respect, because they knew they were in the presence of someone who had mapped not only the stars, but the strength of the human spirit. Part 10. The Long Goodbye. March 14, 2018 arrived like any other day, yet it carried silence. Stephen Hawking passed away at the age of 76. The world did not just lose a scientist, it lost a voice for possibility. For a moment, it felt as though the universe itself had paused. Tributes poured in from astronauts, presidents, professors, and schoolchildren. Buildings dimmed their lights in his honor. Telescopes turned toward the night sky, a quiet salute from Earth to the stars. In homes, people picked up A Brief History of Time and read again. At Westminster Abbey, his ashes were placed near Newton and Darwin. On his memorial stone was engraved an equation for Hawking radiation. It was not only mathematics, it was a signature of his mind. One final message to the universe he loved. His legacy is not only in books or theories. It lives in every curious question a child asks about the night sky, in every researcher who refuses to give up on a hard problem, in every dreamer who believes that limits can be broken.